For our last part of the nervous system, it's time for us to take a close look at the senses. In particular, how we're gathering information in the different receptors that we've got. Now, you all know what your senses are. We'll just leave you with that question while we have a close look at all of them. So you know you've got the 5 senses, okay? You should know that they are all sending information to the brain. What you may not know is that they've got different receptors to do that. Okay? And your brain processes those electrical impulses, and it processes them as the sensations that you perceive as sight or smell. So if we look at sight first of all, you find your sensory receptors in the retina. Now the retina is that yellow bit if you look at that picture of the eye. Okay, you see there's a label there to that thin yellow lining. So light comes in, is focused by your natural lens onto the back of your eye, onto the retina. That is then going to send information down the optic nerve. What happens when the light strikes the retina, turn your attention to that lower image now, the receptors in there called cones and rods, just linked to their shapes. Okay, basically the cones pick up colour, the rods pick up black and white. They are stimulated and they then send that information along the nerve fibre through to your brain. Okay? You've got around about 127 million of these receptors in each of your eyes. Hearing, structure of your ear is such that we have a passing of vibrations. Ultimately, those vibrations get passed through your eardrum, through those 3 tiny little bones, through this to this bit that looks a bit like a snail, called the cochlea. The vibrations in there are moving little hair cells within the liquid, and that then sends an electrical impulse down the auditory nerve through to your brain. So this is a mechanoreceptor, mechano like mechanical, and so something is moving in order to send that. And the reason you need 2 ears is because by listening with both ears, we're able to figure out what direction a sound is coming from. Touch, we've got a couple of different types of receptors. We've got thermoreceptors and mechanoreceptors. So mechano ones which sense if you're touching something, thermo ones which of course are sensing the temperature. Right? They're able to respond to temperature changes above or below the normal body temperature. The pressure and the light movement, okay, so if someone pinches you or touches you or you're tickled with a feather, that's all picked up by the mechanoreceptors. You will notice, I'm sure, that some parts of your body are much more sensitive to touch than others. So like the tips of your fingers are very sensitive, around your mouth is very sensitive. That's because you've got more receptors clustered in those areas. So they're all the same type, but you've just got more of them. In taste, you've got chemoreceptors, chemo for chemical. So we are picking up certain chemicals within the foods, hopefully just food, which are being passed through your tongue to the brain. Okay? Sweet, salty, sour, bitter, all over your tongue. Okay? You've got about 10,000 taste buds, and we replace them every couple of weeks because through the act of eating, you're constantly killing them off. Older you get, the less good you are at regenerating cells. So actually your sense of taste does diminish as you get older. If we look at that little picture, that's what your taste buds look like when we zoom in really close. Yeah, tongue's feeling a bit fuzzy now, right? Spice is not a taste. Spice is actually a pain reaction. Now, some of you will feel that acutely as a pain reaction and be like, oh my god, this is the most painful thing ever, why would anyone eat spicy food? For others, it's quite a pleasant one, but it's still your pain receptors picking it up. Okay? They respond to the chemicals that you're actually damaging your cells. So it actually binds to the taste receptors, it doesn't let go, and it damages them, which makes you pain. If you eat chili and it's hurting you, don't have milk, because the chemical that's causing it does not dissolve in water, but it will dissolve in milk because it's got a higher fat content.
Baijo. Nasa?
Yep, that cat did not enjoy that smell. Nasal cavity, we've got more chemoreceptors, because smell and taste are really closely linked. You probably notice if you've got a bunged up nose that you actually don't taste things well. In the lining of your nose, you've got a strip of tissue, it's called the olfactory endothelium, and that's where you've got those nerve receptors. Okay? We've got about 450 in our noses. Dogs have got about twice as much, which is why they're much better at smelling than us. You have sniffer dogs, not sniffer humans. The receptor is capable of binding to about 10 different odours of varying strength. Okay, and you get different ones binding to different receptors. So we can detect about 1 trillion different smells. So our sense of smell is not bad. It's just not as good as some other animals.